Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you and welcome you all for this distinguished lecture series on energy efficiency. We are indeed very privileged to have Mr. M.S. Krishnan, Managing Director and CEO of Thermax Limited, for this distinguished lecture series. As we all know, we have started this since last month, and we are privileged to have Mr. Krishnan deliver the second distinguished lecture series for on energy efficiency. Mr. Krishnan is also a very fit person for delivering this, as he had a very distinguished career of more than 4 decades at Thermax. He has been with Thermax since the year 1982. And another unique thing about Mr. Krishnan has always been that he had been involved in setting up and scaling up of several divisions and turning around of some of the loss-making divisions, whichever he took over. And his contribution and leadership has been phenomenal to Thermax, to the industry, and to society as a whole. Mr. Krishnan has been involved in leading Thermax and converting it into a billion-dollar organization. He has been the first person to be the marketing executive of Thermax in the year 1982. And Thermax right now in India has become synonymous with cooling and heating applications. To a large extent, it has the credit for this should go to people like Mr. Krishnan, who has been leading from the front. And he has been extensively involved in several of the activities of CII in terms of skill and business development. And he has also been involved with the educational activities through AICTE and PM's fellowship program in doctoral research. Mr. Krishnan, one thing which everybody mentions whenever they speak about Mr. Krishnan has been his out-of-the-box ideas and the way in which articulates his ideas so that it reaches out to all the wider audience. I have had the privilege of listening to Mr. Krishnan many times. The last I heard him was when Thermax inaugurated their new factory in Andhra Pradesh. There was a function in which Mr. Krishnan spoke. 1 minute he was speaking at about 20,000 feet level in terms of overall business and heating and cooling all over the world and the country. And the next minute he was talking about a very fine technical point such as kilowatt per TR and the units consumed and what are the energy efficiency measures and green measures which have been incorporated in the factory. Very unique and person who can contribute, who has contributed a lot and from whom a lot of us can learn a lot of things. So without much further ado, thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us here today. I leave the stage to you for your remarks. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Venkat. You didn't have to make that lengthy introduction of mine. Thanks a lot once again for it. I've been associated with the CAI now for almost 20 years, 20 plus years to be precise. 97 is the time when I came back to India in between when I was outside. And right from the beginning, I've been involved with CII, incidentally in the capital goods and engineering, and then moving into energy, and then later into labor, in IR, every area possible, very closely associated with. And as you mentioned about one of my passions is clean energy and energy efficiency. So when you asked me that, can you come and have a talk given, I certainly felt it's more of an interaction. And if it is going to be that way, it is going to be certainly benefiting all of us. And I will also get to learn from you when you ask me very pointed questions. So Venkata, what I would do is that I will try to restrict my talk as much as possible to 30 minutes so that there will be sufficient time available for us to have a dialogue and maybe clarifications given. So once again, a warm welcome to all those who have come and taken time out to participate in this webinar. And before I getting into the details of energy efficiency in industry, let's remain like the way he mentioned about at 30,000 feet, even not even 20 or 30,000 feet above, and understand what are we faced with as a country. Let's all transform ourselves beyond this worries of COVID and look at India as a promise for the world in the future to be developing into a very energy efficient entity as a country. Normally, the stage that our country is in terms of development, our sensitivity to energy today is approximately equal to 1% per every percentage of GDP growth. It means, in case if India were to be growing, say that 2 years are going to be taken for us to come out of all the problems and we'll come back to the normalcy in 2 years. Thereafterwards, we are expected to be growing at the rate of at least an 8% per annum. On an average, let's say that way. Some years could be 10, some years could be maybe a 6, but on average 8%. So for a period of 10 to 15 years, our energy growth within the country should be at least an 8% on an average per year. Only when you are able to do that, you will be able to grow our GDP by an 8% on an average in the future. Once you reach the stage of a per capita income of maybe $10,000 per person per annum, then our sensitivity of energy will go to, for every percentage of GDP, to 1.25. And when you become a developed world, one day, I'm sure that's a dream for all of us, if not during our lifetime, at least our children's lifetime, we should be a developed country. That time it may go all to a 1.5% of the energy growth for every 1% of GDP growth. So that's the kind of path that we need to be foreseeing and forecasting, entering into a new era of development. Now, let's look at the current numbers related to energy consumption in our country. The G7 countries, the developed world today, consumes approximately 15,000 units of electricity per person per year. Let me repeat it another time. 15,000 units of electricity per person per year is the consumption of the developed world in G7 countries. And something which we are all emulating and wanting to be comparing ourselves generally with is China, which with a population a little more than India has already gone to a development which is very enviable. And we are asked, we should also be reaching. They have crossed 4,000 units of electricity per person per year officially, and in my understanding, it could be anywhere up to 5,000. Otherwise, it is impractical and impossible to support an economy of $40 trillion size with the population of 1.4 billion. So in my number, calculation is around 5,000. They could be declaring as 4,000 units of electricity. And in comparison to the 15,000 of the G7, the developed world, and the 4,000 to 5,000 of China, our country currently is just about barely reaching 1,000 units of electricity per person per year. Now, this may not be the only comparison. There are multiple other things to be compared, but I'm looking at energy right now, since our topic of discussion is energy efficiency. So, the quantum of energy that we need to be generating to become a developed world, even if I were to say it is going to be limited to, we will manage it at 5,000 units of electricity per person, we need to be multiplying our energy generation by 4 to 5 times in the next maybe a 10 to 15 year period of time, so that we will have sufficient and more energy available for developing the country. And an aspirational society cannot be denied because our children, they're not going to be listening to us in case if they were to be denied energy in the future, because that is what is a prime mover for the Human Development Index going forward. So that is a point number 2. And now let's look at a country like India, which is having aspiration, but where are the resources available? See, the Indian population is approximately 17.5% of the entire global population. 1 out of 5 of the entire humanity in the world is an Indian. And for us, land available, unfortunately, is only 2.5%. But more important for us to understand, the so-called energy resources available, coal is supposed to be available in abundance in our country, but it's not in abundance. Let me clarify to you. The total non-reserves of coal in our country is only equivalent to 7%. Let me repeat, 7% of the globally non-reserves of coal. So not that, I mean, for 17.5% population of the world, we have got 17.5% of the coal reserves available. We only have 7%. So that also will be exhausted, provided somebody is going to allow you to burn it. I doubt whether going forward, with the kind of climate change related problem that already the world is facing, will India be allowed to burn coal? I doubt. Maybe in the form of a clean coal with gasification done, reduction of carbon dioxide emission per ton of coal or per unit of coal that is being combusted to produce electricity, there is an outer limit chance that we may be allowed to utilize it. Second area beyond coal is oil and gas. The known reserves of oil and gas available to India currently is less than 1% of the global reserves available. Again, for 17.5% population, less than 1% of the global known reserves of oil and gas available. So where is going to be the energy available for India? And one side we want to be developing a country also. How will you do that unless otherwise we find better mechanisms? Now let's look at the existing mechanism of energy generation and distribution and usage in the world and in our country, because ultimately we are following the world than leading the world at this point of time. And I'm presuming for the next maybe 25 to 30 years, we'll be a follower rather than leader of the world. Now, we've managed to be trifurcating our electricity departments, that is, electricity boards are trifurcated now into GenCos, that are generation companies, transmission companies, Transco, and distribution companies, Discom. Now, these are independent entities because of which we'll be able to calculate the efficiency of our energy system. All of you are going to get surprised about some numbers which I'm going to put in front of you, which is what is going to be the starting point for today's discussion for us. First and foremost, the generation efficiency of a country. I'm keeping even solar and all away because that's not really come into being. With all the big things that we spoke about, as of now, we've got maybe a 35,000 megawatt commission. That also is not full-time available. 1,500 hours in a year is what is available. So predominant part of our energy generation even today is thermal. And then little of nuclear, little of hydel, little of various things put together is what your country is. So in thermal power plants, what is the generating efficiency? In the older subcritical plants of a country, which are 210 megawatt, 220 megawatt, and 500 megawatt, which are those days known as super thermal power station in the country, we are barely getting between 25 to 30% generation efficiency. And the latest versions of supercritical power plants, which got commissioned in the recent past, in the last one, say, decade maximum, we are shy of touching 40, so 37, 38%. So the average generation efficiency of your country today in power generation, I'm sorry to say, we are hovering between a 30 to 32% of generation efficiency. It means of this dirty coal or the oil or a gas that we are combusting in our thermal power plants, only 30 to 33% gets converted into electricity and the balance is wasted. Remember, in a country like India, a poor country, we're wasting already there. So that's the generation efficiency of a country. Now move into the transmission. The transmission, again, originally we were transmitting electricity at 110 kV. It got elevated to 220, 440, and now there are some new lines getting constructed for 7,720, where the world has already moved to 1,200 kV. For us to be upgrading our entire system into 1,200, I think it would take maybe a couple of decades, or at least a decade. So we will have to be living with the old system and the newer ones going to be at 720, where the transmission efficiency of this very, very difficultly with too expensive manufacturing production of electricity, the transmission efficiency of a country is approximately 80%. That's improved in the recent past. Otherwise, it is hovering around 60, 65. It's gone to an 80%. So you produce at 33 and transmit at 80. And then we have the electricity available for our homes, for our commercial buildings, our factories, anything that is where electricity is getting consumed, the currency available. And now this is where the clarity is going to be understood by us. The areas where we are consuming electricity, in majority of the areas, the composite number, which is calculated roughly by the country, by the various energy related departments of the country, TERI, all of them put together, the estimate is anywhere between 30 to 40% is the usage efficiency at this point of time. You may be wondering how the hell can we tell like this that our electricity usage efficiency is only 30-40%. I don't know whether you are aware of the fact that every air conditioner that you have in your rooms at home has got a compressor. Unfortunately, the best of the technologies in the world today for such smaller ones don't give you an efficiency more than 35-40%. A lot more of industrial equipments offer you efficiency rate. So you take a composite number of for the country. Unfortunately, we are even today hovering at 40. I may even give a concession of 45. Now come to the composite efficiency of generation to transmission to distribution. Any of you may have, I mean, all of you have mobile phones. There is a calculator. Why don't you just open it up and calculate it for yourself? Multiply 0.3, that is 30% generation efficiency. So make it 33, 0.33. Multiplied by 0.8, that is for transmission. Multiplied by 0.4, and 40% average efficiency for usage in the country. So 0.33 into 0.8 into 0.4, I'm sure those who have done the calculation will know. I will be jumping from your seat right now. You may be getting a number anywhere between 10% to 11%. Is the overall energy efficiency of your country is less than 15% in any case. And my calculation says that it is hovering between 10 to maybe at 12%, till 10, 11, 12% is the overall energy efficiency. A poor country like India, which is even today importing coal, virtually the oil and almost of the gas that we utilize in the country is imported. And imagine that for all that is paid in dollars, that for every $100 that we are just spending to import it into the country, 90%, or let me just give a consideration, 85% is burned out into the thin air and not utilized. Can we afford this luxury as a country? We have been affording it without understanding. Once the realization happens, what do you think about for the future of the country? I would believe that, thank God, we have not developed this country to a level that the Western world has developed. Because we copied from them and utilized all the equipments, all the energy guzzling, inefficient technologies we have utilized in the country so far. But if you have to be developing India in the future, the energy efficiency has got to be changing. So the yeoman service done by CII Godrej GBC, Venkat and his team, really appreciate it, because please remember, we don't have resources available to develop the country the way we have developed earlier. The future can only be with energy efficiency of a totally different nature. Unless otherwise we are able to achieve that, I don't think India will be allowed to be developing in the world. Then we'll have to send people not to the Middle East or Germany or America. We'll have to send Indians to maybe Mars only. Then only area where we need to be depending upon survival of India is ISRO, who can have enough and more spacecrafts to take Indians to some other planet where there may be some energy resource available. So that's a reality that we are faced with. Taking a pause over here, so we understood that we cannot be utilizing the way energy got utilized in the past. And going forward, we are going to be finding mechanisms and creating technologies far away from what we got created. And there, India has got an opportunity available, because our total connected load at this point of time is hovering around 4 lakh megawatt, including the thermal to nuclear to hydel to standby DG sets and everything put together is the current wind and everything put together. And if the numbers which I spoke about were to be understood by you, we may have to be, at least in the next 1 decade, crossing a 10 lakh megawatt of electricity generation. So those are the areas where we have got an option and opportunity available in generation to go for a higher level, distribution to go for a, so transmission to go for a higher level, and all the converters, the equipments that we are going to be utilizing, we need to ensure that they are efficient. And for India, the problem faced or being faced by the West is not going to be the problem going to be faced by your country, because 43% of all the electricity that you will be generating in the future will be utilized only for one purpose, a stupid purpose known as air conditioning. You may be surprised that, I mean, is it so? Is the calculation right? Just, I'll make you calculate in your own rooms right now. Just see the number of bulbs for illuminating the room where you're sitting. I'm sure all of you are sitting in maybe a work from home or in an office in a cabin. Normally, it is earlier used to be one bulb. Now with the advent of LED happening, there are 4, 5, 6 lamps available. Let me say including the concealed ones. There are 10 of them. On an average, having maybe a 5 to 6 watt means to illuminate your room as if there is a 100% sunlight into your room. You only need to be spending maybe a 50 watts of electricity to illuminate your entire room. And now look at the air condition in your room. 1.5 ton AC. 1.5 ton AC will have a motor connected to the compressor ranging between 1.2 to 1.5 kW. kW, it is not water. So which means approximately 1,200 to 1,500 watts of electricity will be needed to air condition your room versus the 50 watts needed for illuminating your room. Now tell me, have you ever seen any offices getting created in India, whether it is in Kanyakumari or in Kashmir or anywhere, which will not have a central air conditioning? Will anybody rent out an office? And any tall building that you see in any cities of India, if it is not centrally air conditioned as residences, each room will have a window air conditioner. That's the reality. So the 43% number which I told is not wrong. So the way the West got developed is not the way you're going to be developing. So that is going to be a major usage. So unless otherwise we are able to design better equipments which will give you the minimum efficiency. If I were to be tomorrow, made the Director General of Energy Efficiency, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, I would say that you cannot make air conditioners which are less than 80% efficient. It will be the challenge. Otherwise, I don't give permission. So these are the kind of developmental, technological development that our country needs to be doing going forward to ensure that whatever we create in the future through innovation and invention are going to be far ahead of the world and different than the world to ensure the limited resources available of energy of your country, we will be able to have a good life provided for the future generation. So that is about the technology development needs of the country. And a lot needs to be done. There is no way you can be adopting I don't want to use the word stupid, but I would say not at all thought through. Everything is okay equivalent because there is surplus available in those kinds of world and there are money available to procuring it. And we won't have that kind of energy procurement capability and the money. And we need to be creating technologies which are much more efficient than what's available to the developed world. Second and most important area is whatever you have done in the past from independence onwards. So maybe let me say that most of the capital that all of us do have at our homes to maybe in the industries all put together, an average lifespan for a durable of maybe Indians use up to 10 years. Many people will not throw out a fridge even for 20 years. But let's say that efficiency, it is 10 years average for durables. Electronic item maybe 5 years, 5 to 10 years. Industrial equipments, normally Indians will use for 20 years. Now, we got so much of working installations which are made based on the old technology gifted to us or copied by us or taken away by us from the developed world, which are all not efficient to the extent that it should be. So how do you increase the efficiency of whatever is currently in operation? That is the second challenge for the country. So Indians have got to think about how to make the existing ones more efficient. The area that we work on, say maybe for example heating, where I had an exposure of lifetime so far. When I started as an engineer in the beginning as a design engineer 38 years back, normal back-end temperature of all the boilers, heating equipment that were heaters or boiler or any of them were not less than 180 degrees centigrade. And we were all taught that anything lower than 180 is not viable because the cost of that capital equipment to recover that heat will have a payback much longer. Maybe true that time. But continuing with the 180 degrees centigrade today is stupidity in my opinion because the kind of versatility available in material sciences and utilities of distribution of heat at different levels, not at one level generation. It may be practically, in fact, in even the developed world where they don't need to be doing it, they have got condensing economizers where they condense their gas to 0 degrees centigrade to recover that. So which means the low potency heat available in the entire home to industry, anywhere, if you are emitting any heat above 10 degrees above the average ambient temperature of India, which means average ambient temperature of India in summer will go to 40 plus degrees centigrade. And in winter, of course, in half of India, central part of India, it may be around, say, maybe at 28, 30 degrees centigrade. North could be cold. But average, if you talk about any temperature that we are throwing out at 70 to 80 degrees centigrade and above is a waste for the country. It's something which we can't afford. How do we ensure to get this low potency heat absorbed at a cheaper cost and then utilize it for what all are the needs of energy? There are three forms of energy usage at home or maybe in the industries. Number one is heating. Number two is number three is as electricity. So how to convert this low potency heat? Heat to heat is very easy. Heat to chilling is possible to do with absorption, adsorption. There are various kinds of technology which are available, may be inefficient. You're going to make it more efficient. And third is how do you convert low potency heat into electricity using organic Rankine cycle? So these are the areas of development for your country, and nobody in the West is going to be doing it because they are not interested, whereas we need it. So these are the areas of potential available for newer companies to be creating technologies, and it can't be limited to one or two companies. I'm sure the future billionaires of India, I'm not talking about the unicorns which are coming from the aggregation, hotel aggregation equivalent of that will continue. I'm talking about core technology where inventions will be done, technology creations will be done, will be the energy efficiency part of utilization of low potency energy. As we are developing, we will also be doing one more service to our country. Remember that your country is a signatory for the Paris Agreement. And currently everybody is worried about COVID. It will get off. I mean, we'll learn to live with that and we'll overcome that also one day. As we come out of that, again, climate change is going to be coming back as the biggest issue for the world. And to overcome that, all of us put together have signed the Paris Agreement. And that point of time, we agreed that the globe can afford to be raising the temperature by 2 degrees centigrade. But we realize the calamities the world has faced just maybe as awaken all, each to 1.5 degrees centigrade. So our original agreement is that by 2030, we will reduce the carbon intensity of India's economy by a 30%. That is only for 2 degrees. But if you could limit it to 1.5%, we may have to be having the intensity reduced by almost 40-43%, which I don't know is it practical or so. So for us to develop further, the world will not. End of the day, please remember, we don't have the money available to develop our country to the extent that we are wanting to develop. With our own internal generation of money, we will be able to grow our economy by maybe at the best of 4%. For the next 4% for our country to be growing, we got to depend upon foreign investment to come, foreign borrowing to come. For that to happen, none of them are going to be allowing us to be burning fossil fuel. So we need to be looking at those are the possibilities that we will be a committed country to ensure that everything that we do in energy generation is towards climate mitigation programs also. So towards that, everything that we do should also be green in nature. So this is energy efficiency. Second, energy efficiency achieved through a carbon footprint reduction in the industry. So it is very, very important, those who are listening right now, that as the engineers of India and the people who are going to be driving Indian technology development and to ensure that your country grows in the proper fashion and leave the future for our generation to be surviving, these are the areas that you're going to be focusing on. When you look around, well, there are n number of opportunities available for each one of us. I'll just give only one example. There are n number of examples I could have given, but just want to give, I think last year CII GBC gave Thermax an award for it. Just to give an idea, potato wafer manufacturing is done by some of the, in India, there are the largest one is a private company, Indian company. Majority of them are Indian origin companies only. But there are also multinational companies who are manufacturing it, including some of the largest names in the world. One such company had a problem related to in the fryer of the potatoes. Because remember, potato is nothing but 90% water and 10% carbohydrate. So when you slice it and put it into the fryer in the oil, the entire water comes out as steam, and that creates a lot of problem. So they collect it and throw it out. So somewhere somebody from our side went and visited that factory, and realized that there is so much of steam coming out of this, fundamentally steam coming out of that. Why don't we utilize this heat to produce chill water? So we suggested it to them, and we give an absorption chiller into which this entire, the fire emission, whatever is coming out from that, the fumes are collected and put it, and we could do a 200 tons of air conditioning using that. It didn't end over there. So what happened is the entire steam along with the fumes, which also contain part of the oil, it is getting condensed in the HTG, high temperature generator of the absorption chiller. Water, there's an effluent problem created right now. How do we, otherwise it was going to thin air, nobody bothered for it. So then they asked us, can we do recovery of the water? Today we have created a technology by which you could recover the entire water out of the condensate. And for the particular factory, which is owned by one of the largest multinationals, I'm talking about a $40-50 billion manufacturer, global multinational, is able to have almost 90% of their water requirement taken from the potato wafer manufacturing process. And they only need to have a 10% of the water collected from outside. And in any case, their entire offices and maybe part of the factories getting air conditioned using this one. This is what is energy efficiency for you. And being a frugal country, you look around, there are n number of opportunities available for you to be creating or preserving energy from the waste around. There is one 15 megawatt power plant, IPP, in existence, where we have supplied the entire power plant from mustard stock, because all of us use mustard in India a lot for seasoning of our food. That stock of that is thrown out, very, very polluting. We are able to generate 15 megawatt electricity. There is a full plant running for the past maybe, I think, 12 or 13 years. In Andhra Pradesh, using chili brand, we are creating electricity. So every agro waste of your country can be utilized for creating energy. Similarly, in every building that you are sitting in, from every area you can save energy. By designing our future buildings, like the way CIGBC will help you, how to design your buildings where the energy consumption can be so low and you can become eco-friendly. So these are the options available for each one of us. My request to all of you is that look around, and with the classical Indian mind that we shall not waste anything because we don't have the resources available, both money and natural resources available, and we will still want to develop our country as a very efficient thing. And tomorrow, this country can export those technologies, and that should be the path by which we lead the world also in technology. So wishing you all the best in that path, and forget about COVID for the time being. It is a scientific problem where an n number of Indians and international scientists are working towards a good treatment protocol and possibly a vaccine to be found. And my take is a minimum of a 12 months from today and a maximum of a 24 months, there will be a solution for the entire thing. We will come out of the economic difficulties by that time. We need to protect ourselves, and then we need to be ensuring that we become a very efficient economy and lead the world through energy efficient technologies. Thanks a lot once again, Venkat. I hand it over to you to take on the questions from our colleagues.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for your excellent address. I think you started with the growth scenarios, looking at what would be the future resource requirements in the country, gave us all a shock with the current efficiency of power sector that we are all operating at. I'm sure that will be something which most of us will remember for a really long time, and do our best in whatever we can in trying to see how we can reduce our consumption. You also spoke about innovation, the need for it, and the climate change issue that is very pertinent to all of us, and that is something which we should be cognizant of in all of our future expansion and development. And the examples that you highlighted, sir, looking at how certain small interventions can make a huge impact as far as the overall efficiency improvement of the organizations are concerned. Now, this time we already have a few questions in the Q&A window, sir, but a request to all the participants, please type in your questions in the question and answer window that you see in the WebEx platform, and I'll help transmit those questions to Mr. Unnikrishnan and take his views and inputs on it. Sir, the first, a lot of questions have come around the flexible generation and the issue that the thermal power sector might be facing today, largely with the increasing role of renewables coming in and the cyclic and the seasonal changes that we see in the power injection from renewables in the overall national grid, the flexible generation is becoming a challenge. So what do you think are certain things that we can take care of by design? What are the things that the sector should look at? And more particularly, there were about 3 questions on what would be the role for automation, control, information being made available in terms of handling this flexible generation scenarios.
Yeah, it's a very good question, very relevant also. First and foremost, I fully agree with you that when you have got smaller distributed generators aggregating into the main grid of the country, there could be harmonics in electricity which can be very, very dangerous. You can pull the entire system down. It is practical. I mean, what somebody mentioned about. The original thinking related to electricity transmission in the country envisaged a green corridor for evacuation, and all the safeties to be built into that at generation to transmission junction level and at various other areas where it will be trunked into the main line. Not happened so far, but progressively will happen. So once when we have our full gridding completed, see, if you're planning for a triple grid in the country, there are 3 different grids which are getting created, which will also have interlinkages, and then there will be a superimposed one as a national grid, which all would happen sometime down the lane. Construction is happening, a lot of contracts getting awarded, but till that time there is an issue and there will be a problem on that. So that's a point number 1. Second is technologies are also simultaneously improving, because earlier your generation levels were at lower voltage in solar. Now it has gone up. Similarly in wind, maybe when we started wind, the 100 kW was a big thing, one single windmill. It went to 250. It went into megawattage. There are 3 megawatts today available. People are generating even 5 and 6 megawatt equivalent windmills. So as the rotor capacity increases, the harmonic problem will come down substantially. And electronic solution for suppression of this are also simultaneously getting built. So together, these two should take care of as far as this, AC versus DC problems, which was identified by the country earlier, getting resolved for that part. Then comes, if you look at the tenders which are coming out from the SECI, that is a Solar Energy Corporation of India, originally they were bidding so far, everything was only solar farms. I mean, like, started with 10 megawatt to 20 to 50 to 60 to 100 to 250, as the kind of things that happen. But today, the latest tenders coming are with storage only. Everyone understands that going forward, when you're going to have, imagine that 51% of all the Indian electricity generation is from informed sources, then you will have difficulties. To make it firm, you need to go for a hybrid. So the latest tender that you've seen of a 250 megawatt that is being tendered out with SECI is asked for currently a hybrid system in such a way that including solar, wind, tidal, and energy storage, you should be able to give it 24/7. Now, how we are going to perfect it? Currently, I mean, everyone knows it is possible to do that way. The ingredients in each one of them are going to be selected, and it will take some time. Similarly, as much as lithium-ion battery generation has helped the world in terms of automobile industry, flow battery technology creation is going to be helping, in my opinion, the world and in India particular, for one of the products that you cited. So that is next technology development need of the world. So we don't have a solution fully operational right now, but going forward, as we are going to be generating more and more, I'm sure solutions also will be found by India. That is the only answer I can give you at this point of time.
Thank you, sir. The follow-up question on this, which again a couple of people have asked us, is in terms of the role for captive power plants in the country today, as the thermal power is far more stable than what it was many years back. And given the fact that the bigger power plants are far more efficient than captive power plants, the question that is coming is, can CPPs be effectively utilized for flexibilization? Is there some scheme or policy that you could, I mean, you would like to propose or think about, sir, where CPPs can bridge in that, because they are at least about 10 to 15% of the power generation in the country today. Can they be acting as a fillip to give a stability in the power fluctuation scenario, particularly with renewable injection being very unreliable?
I'm Unfortunately, it hasn't reached the 10-15% so far because the number of larger plants were commissioned in the last 1 decade. CPPs haven't kept in tune with that. So percentage is lower. But this can be a proposal. We will ourselves take it up to the government of India and then we can certainly look at it. Because I also feel many a times, unlike in the earlier past where the cement companies had CPP, that's the single largest sector, which had the largest of the CPPs available in the country. And they used to be selling a lot of electricity to the grid and making money, and it has come down because the electricity tariff has come down. So can we have in the merit order dispatch MOD higher priority given to them? Tariff, of course, the government may not interfere into that. That is some possibility that can think about it. But let me clarify to you that way. We can get for those CPPs, unfired waste to energy ones can be in any case given preference, already given preference, but we can still work on that. For example, in the cement industry itself, the waste heat recovery, original days when we had, I remember the first company that when I was into selling job, not become a SBU head, was the largest multinational cement maker of the world. Their plants in India, which are owned by another Indian company, very large Indian company who sold it off to them. I'm talking about maybe 20 and or 25 years back when I tried to sell to them. They were the first whom I approached for a cement waste sheet. They're the only one not gone for so far. All Indian companies are gone for. Nobody is wanting to go for it. So the first ones were a classical 3 million ton per annum cement capacity. Was only a 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 15 megawatt they'll go for. Today, almost 38 to 40% of the entire power consumption for a cement plant can be gotten from the waste heat generated from the cement process itself. So people are willing to go for it. So that will have to be continued. So that has got to happen. That will continue as an institute. Then the next question is, you talk about maybe a sponge iron plant. In a sponge iron plant, you have the gases coming out from the furnace at a temperature of 550 degrees centigrade. You are not allowed to be throwing it into the thin atmosphere. You've got to generate power from that. So CPP, so that the one where waste heat oriented CPP will continue. Any blast furnace in the country, the blast furnace gas has got to be utilized to generate some form of energy, of power. It is going to be continuing. So CPP per se will continue in the country. Now, the next question is related to combustion oriented. There is a coal-fired CPPs. Yes, it is possible. But in the future, when carbon footprint reduction becomes a necessity, I have a belief that we may have to go for a coal gasifier. And instead of burning the coal, you may have to go for a transport gasifier, which will reduce the entire carbon footprint by at least maybe 1/3 by having an injection of water or steam done into the gasifier, where hydrogen will also get added onto the hydrocarbon chain and the overall CO2 emission will come down. So the same CPP, I'm talking about 10 years down the line, not today, but India has got to think about it, because if you're going to be utilizing coal in the future, as is where is condition of combusting and converting the entire carbon to carbon dioxide may not happen at all. It's my belief, 10 years down the line. So right now itself, we're going to develop gasifiers and then utilize some of this. Then the question is, if you're producing gas, should you go for a Rankine cycle, which is giving you at CPP level at maybe 28-30% efficiency? Go for a combined cycle with the gas turbine and the other one also is a possibility. So India is going to be evolving a lot more different going forward. So you guys who are youngsters, people like us are already at the tail end of our career. You guys are the, I would say, middle ages and above. We'll have to think about the technology changes needed for each one of them. So coming back to this, the policy related one, let's think about it, Venkat, from CIA also we'll take it to the government. Can you have an MOD? That's a merit order dispatch for this existing power plants be given to stabilize infirm power from solar and wind. That we'll think about it. And you guys think about how to make it, because most of them are, coal-fired ones, how to convert them into for the future for supporting climate change mitigation.
Thanks, sir. You spoke about waste heat recovery, and there are at least about 6 questions related to low temperature waste heat recovery, sir. Particularly, your thoughts on organic Rankine cycle, and do you see any role in future for it here? And what kind of incentives or support are required to make it viable, particularly in low temperature heat recovery applications?
First and foremost, ORC as a technology is not fully developed in the world. But developed money in developing technology beyond the level. And unfortunately, since I am very closely associated with technology development as various committees or Department of Science and Technology, very rare level of research is going on. In fact, there is hardly any project which is funded by the government currently happening. Our companies are going to combine with the universities, industry, academia participation, and we need to be creating better solutions for it. Because the current gases used by the organic Rankine cycle, I don't think they are very efficient. And they cannot accept certain temperatures. Very low temperatures are very difficult. So you get, for example, the currently available ORCs, which are say sub megawatt range. If you put with maybe a generating set, which is continuously running gen set, if you put it across, you will get maybe a 8% recovery of say for 1 megawatt say diesel engine. And if you put a ORC at the tail end of it in the gas path, you'll be able to generate maybe a 8%, means 80 kW out of that. It is not it's viable, but not when the oil prices are higher, it will be viable. When oil is going to be remaining at maybe $30 and lower per barrel, it may not be viable. So you need to be creating a new ORC technology. So it is not an item to be bought and fitted right now, in my opinion. So ORC technology development is a necessity in the country. And in that, you need sub 100 kW, that is less than 100 kW, where in any of the industries where you got through a chimney, the gas is going at maybe a temperature of 150 and above, the one which will be suitable for that. And for India, when you develop it, it should be for a dirty gas, not for a very clean gas. Or else have a gas clean system and that to be created along with that one. And then 100 to 1000 kW and megawatt range, ideally speaking, we can afford to import technology right now. But the smaller ones, Indians are capable. So it is a technology development and then moving ahead. Similarly, you got half effect absorption chillers available. In fact, for the Manuguru plant of the heavy water board, we've given for, say, they have a lot of water going at 60 degrees centigrade. And we are absorbing that water and in an absorption chiller, which is a half effect chiller. So you've got single effect, you've got double effect, you've got triple effect. Half effect is also there in textbook. We created it. It's already there working. I remember I got this developed when I used to be running that business in year 2002. There were no buyers for it. So if in your organization, you need air conditioning at least for your office, imagine that in a textile industry or any company, you got 60-65 degrees centigrade condensate returning. And instead of before you putting or maybe condensate or maybe an effluent, many companies have effluent going at 80 degrees centigrade. Now we put it in the effluent treatment plant and kill the bacteria. Instead of that, put a absorption machine in between, half effect machine, recover the heat, and then put that into the your effluent treatment so the bacteria won't get killed also. With that heat, you generate the air conditioning needs of your entire office. Today, a factory office also will have at least an office air conditioning. There will be 100 people sitting, and there will be maybe 100-200 tons of air conditioning that you can get it free. So there's another possibility. So using ingenuity and finding out where is the heat available and utilize. So that's another possibility. So coming back to that, low potency heat has to be converted, as I mentioned about heat to heat. So let me tell you what I mean by this. I was surprised once when I saw the report that how many industrial heating applications, the process industry, are above 100 degrees centigrade and below 100 degrees centigrade. I was surprised for the set of industry which is calculated by those consultants. They proved to me that almost 30 to 35% of all the industrial heating application falls in less than 100 degrees centigrade. You ideally don't need even steam. Whereas you generate in one boiler steam at maybe 10.5 kg pressure or 17.5 kg pressure at 170, 180, and then bring it down to various temperature by mixing cold water with that and putting it into various applications. So it is quite likely if you already have a chimney emitting gases at 150, 170 degrees centigrade, put a heat exchanger using titanium or one of the non-corrosive kind of little more expensive. Take that into hot water at a little higher pressure and use it for it. So as heat, it is cheaper because heat to heat conversion efficiency is very high. Then if you need air conditioning, go for a half effect machine with a hot water or directly utilizing that. Even not go for ORC to generate electricity. So either as heat, either as chill water, or third as application as electricity. There is an opportunity available in India to utilize it. Is my opinion on that. But please remember, none of this is going to be happening sitting in your chair in the cabin. It needs you to go to, like, I mean, you have, I'm so happy to see that you train more than maybe 1 lakh of people in energy efficiency. And various ways are available. And we are uploading it also. I know that your site has got various case studies available. How do we ensure that we become responsible, not in terms of getting our increments or to get great certificates from the company, as a constitutional Indian citizen, that I will not want my country to be wasting energy. It's very expensive for me, based on what I told you earlier. So that should be our attitude, that every kilojoule or joule or maybe a calorie of heat that is getting wasted, I'll take it away. So there is possibility for ORC, there is possibility for absorption. There is also possibility for new technologies to be created. That is my answer for it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You mentioned about a significant increase in power generation capacity which is coming in. And you also mentioned that with such a large increase coming in, there would be a lot of requirement for innovation, for looking at efficiency improvement. There are several questions in terms of which are the areas you think India can be a world leader as far as the new generation technologies are concerned. Are there any specific areas, any specific technologies where you think India has a potential to lead globally?
See, since we are talking about energy, energy is consumed maximum as electricity anywhere in the world. And even the automobiles which were consuming in liquid form, we are going to convert them into electricity. So electricity efficiency is the number one area where we can be leading the world. So in electricity efficiency, as I mentioned about generation, is one technology. In that, the latest technology that is getting created, which is also accepted by the UNFCCC as an energy efficient technology, is ultra supercritical in terms of combustion orientation. That is one. Second one is integrated IGCC, that gasification and combined cycle. Now, all these are thought through by the world at very high levels. That is 1000 megawatt, 500 megawatt. For a country like India, do we need to be having all that to be done? If gasification is going to be done tomorrow, I would look at gasifiers which will be using coal, okay, and then using the gas in situ in your factory, not to pollute. It's possible. In that, you can have energy plants, a new idea. Because why do you need to be having a separate item for getting hot air? Many of the processes need hot air. You need hot water. You need steam. You need chilling to be done in the thing. And you need electricity. So can you not have a thought process done for the entire energy where input can be of different nature? So you will, what are for all this outputs that is needed? Input can be solar, both thermal and PV. And then wind if it is practical in your area. And if biomass is available, all renewable resources to be utilized and all the outputs being taken out from a singular plant. So you design an energy plan. So that will be the most efficient. And Indians have a lot more of engineers coming out and they are available at cheap. So how will you not utilize them to be doing it rather than them inefficiency and add it together in the factory as a utility plan? So this is another idea possible. So in my understanding, the newer areas of development are finding out what are the output needed in your factory or input needed for the process utilities and what are the inputs available related to the roof available. In that, I've seen many companies, textile mill, I'm sorry to say that, please, I'm going to be talking something which may be liked by everybody. They got enough and more roof available. They'll put to this PV without understanding a monocrystalline. Also, the best one available in the market today gives you 17 to 18% efficiency. Remember, God is giving you free photons. Okay, in that you are converting maximum 17, but that is provided by the latest one. What you bought 5 years back gave you an efficiency of 11 to 12%. Balance 80-90% of the entire energy given free to you by God is already wasted by you as heat in that one. And whereas they, for them, they can afford to buy electricity. Like put what they need is hot water. They need a lot of steam. Why won't you put a evacuated tube on your roof instead of the PV? And then from that generate hot water and steam for your textile processes. And because the reason is when you take thermal heat from photons and convert that into hot water or steam in an evacuated tube, your efficiency can be as high as maybe 50%, as against what you're getting at 11%. So nobody thinks about energy efficiency because everybody thinks solar energy is free. Sorry, it's not free. It is given to you as free, but there is a cost for it. So this is the way you're going to be thinking about energy efficiency.
Thank you, sir. There are again a series of questions in terms of seeking your thoughts on how do we increase access to finance particularly for energy efficiency measures. A large number of projects are still based on capital invested by companies. How do we create a vibrant energy efficiency financing market, and what do you think are required in terms of making energy efficiency much more vibrant and in terms of access to finance, sir?
A very good question. Incidentally, let me clarify to you that depending upon government may not work, because at least for the next 5 years, government will be the single largest borrower. One is to pay for all what you're paying today for overcoming COVID, and later the expenses related to that, and with the less income happening. And I don't think they'll have, if they may have verbosity, they'll say that we will give you, but they won't be able to give you. Creating newer edifices, newer companies which can fund it. There are private funds already started coming to India. In my understanding, I mean, those who are not gone to that level, let me clarify to you. Even in the current year, in the first 4 months, including the month of April, I'm taking $900 million were brought in for solar energy related thing from outside India at international interest rates. There are green funds available, and it comes to India through International Finance Corporation, IFC. But I agree with you, Venkat. Indian banking system, I'm talking about private bankers, nobody has started having verticals only for clean energy. So, though there are a lot of companies started for setting up solar energy with clean energy funding, but nobody has gone for energy efficiency, barring one company which is started by the government of India themselves. What is that? Not an E, whatever is that company. This is a joint venture with the British company also.
Yes, sir.
This is a thing which all of I agree with you. I'm not denying that. Nobody has done it from the private sector. Not at all gathering momentum also, but there is a good opening available there. And all of us need to work towards that. I fully agree with you. You need funds to come from outside at a cheaper rate. And this is an area where there will be a guarantee about repayment also. We need to look at it. I agree with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. One last question, sir. We have over 500, 120 people on this session now. And out of this, a quick check is, sir, about 20 to 25% of them are young engineers who are having their career in energy sector, their career in energy efficiency sector. What would be your words of advice for them, sir? What are the areas where you think their future lies as far as energy and energy efficiency careers are concerned? What is it that you would advise them, suggest them to look at?
In fact, I'm appreciative of each one of them, because it's not a fancy career to be in. Many people think that way. Maybe it was true for people like us when we started 38 years back to get into energy. We didn't understand and we got into that. I want to clarify to my younger brothers and sisters over here, you are in the right path, because the developed world is not adopting beyond a level into development of technology related to energy, because they feel they have, it's true also, they have got enough and more energy generation capability. The developing world needs technology, and the maximum investment is going to happen in the world in the next 10 to 20 year period of time will be in the energy area. The first point that I started off with was, what is the sensitivity of energy for GDP growth? So in the developing world, which is more than 2/3 of the world is yet to be developed, as they are going to be developing, energy will be the driver and the pivot towards economic development. And in that, great careers are going to be available. Stable careers are going to be available. I repeat it that way. If you are into an electronic industry, the technology obsolescence rate is so high. That is why you'll find in IT companies and electronic companies, once you cross 35 to 40 years, they prefer a youngster, a 25-year-old boy than a 40-year-old guy. But in the energy industry, the more you lose your hair or gray your hair, you are respected more because your knowledge is pickled. So you've chosen the right one. Have patience and remain over there. Don't shift out of that. And there could be days, if not anything, you can start on your own. And you don't need too much investment for it. So you've chosen the right thing. But learn a lot. It takes a lot of energy from your side. I'm talking about mental energy to be learning and practicing it. India needs you. The world will be needing you tomorrow. And I'm sure this, I repeat it that way. The 21st century's energy technologies, at least half of them will come from China and India put together. The rest will come from ever. So even if you say that India is going to create even maybe 10 to 15% of the newer technologies, you will be having a great career and India will also do well. And I'm very confident about this area. Not because of any other, because you don't have resources available. You need to be having that kind of an ingenuity utilized in energy area. The resources are limited over here and we need to be growing. And you cannot stop the aspirations of the younger Indians. And I am with them always. I'm always with a lot of people that nobody should be denying you a good life. And you're going to make it happen. And I'm sure you guys will make it happen. And all the best to make it happen.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for your insightful address today, sir. You covered extensively, not only on the depth of your hands-on technical input in terms of efficiencies, in terms of the kinds of the waste heat recovery systems or the power generation systems that are required, but also from a very, very broad holistic picture in terms of what are the areas where the regulatory changes are required, what are the areas where financing has to be brought in, your thoughts on how do we look at the entire power sector in whole. Thanks a lot, sir. It was a very, very interesting session for all of us. I'm sure we enjoyed listening to you for the past 1 hour. Your thoughts were extremely insightful and giving us a new sense of looking at where we should focus on taking this energy efficiency drive forward. And now I leave it to you, sir, to let us know if you have any last words to summarize, and we can close the session, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Venkat. And I need to be thanking CII, especially your institution, for the past 20 years painstakingly. I know when you started off also those days at Hyderabad Center, as to how difficult was it for you to be even having the first customer coming and listening to you. And the way you are propagating it wholeheartedly. New awards that you're giving for and getting ideas and creating a platform for creating it. And I only wish there are more platforms that we are able to create, because at the end of the day, this is something. What happened is our science learnings, a lot has come from the Western world. Let's be accepting the fact. Whereas the life learnings are from our own culture. The day when we are able to have our own science created and the life learnings put together, life learning are living with less resources is the Indian life learning, and be happy about it. Simple living and high thinking is what we have. And if we are able to have science of modern day created to ensure that we can continue on that path, India will be a happy country beyond being a human development index also. So I have a lot of hopes on my next generation. And I do believe that they are the right people, the good people. And I respect each of the youngsters in this country. They're going to make a